Welcome back to the Brahmin Word, and we are continuing on with the first vision that Daniel sees in Daniel chapter 7. But now we get to its interpretation and how it all comes about. But one thing that I wanted to touch on really quickly is about visions and dreams. So, with visions and dreams, it's not like it's just a fanciful dream with no meaning behind it. When we see a lot of visions and dreams in scripture, there's an actual meaning behind them, there's interpretation behind it. It's not just random. I mean, it is very, it is very random in depiction, but it's not just like a dream that you and I would have at night. But there is a purpose and there is an actual meaning for it, even if the depictions of the dream are in a metaphorical sense, pointing to something that is literal. So, with that being said, let's go back to Daniel chapter 7. We're going to look at the rest of the chapter, which is verses 15 through 28. So let's begin with this interpretation. Verse 15. As for me, Daniel, my spirit within me was anxious, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I approached one of those who stood there and asked him the truth concerning all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of the things. Now, before we get to that interpretation, so there's a little bit of difference here. Daniel is in this dream state, and within that dream state, he meets somebody that could interpret the dreams or and visions for him. This is a little bit different from what we've seen with Daniel, because Daniel seeks out the Lord, and then the Lord shows him what the vision means. Here, it's all done within the actual dream and vision. So it's a little bit different there. And then, obviously, of course, he's anxious. And I love this description too. My spirit within me was anxious. I think that's to show that it's not just a something that's talking about a physical future that is to be, but it's also talking about a spiritual aspect to that future. And as we'll see in a second, a spiritual warfare that is coming. And that's, well, here. So, with that being said, let's get to the interpretation, verse 17. These four great beasts are four kings who shall rise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, and ever. So I think the kingdom that's being talked about in verse 18 is the earth as a whole. I don't think it's talking necessarily about Jerusalem or about Babylon. I think it's really talking about the earth as a whole, with it being such eternal verbiage with this forever, and ever phrase at the end of verse 18. But you have the beast with the four kings, and so now it's interesting here because for the rest of the interpretation, it's really going to be about the fourth beast specifically. So, does that mean that the other three beasts are not important? Of course not. They're still very important. Now, the question is it talking about Babylon, the Medes and Persians, the Greeks, and then the Romans? So, one of them is not being represented here, because the fourth beast, as we'll see, is talking about a future beast that is coming. So my guess is probably, if you look at the beasts, the first one is the lion and had eagle's wings. That could be a reference to Babylon itself. The second beast is a bear. That could be in reference to the Greeks. And then the last one is a leopard with four wings of bird on its back. That could be a reference to Rome. So my guess is the Medes and Persians. It could be the eagle's wings on the back of the lion, possibly. But as the passage shows, though, the three beasts that come before are not the focus. It's the fourth beast that really, really stands out. However, I think the beast 1 through 3 shows just like the the first dream with the statue. I think it shows that God is in charge of all the rising and falling of empires. I know we've talked about that a lot, but that is a very key thing to the book of Daniel as he is transitioning from the Babylonian Empire to the empire of the Medes and Persians. So here, though, I think the point about this dream and vision is to focus in on that fourth beast, which Daniel does. Verse 19. Then I desired to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, with its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, and which devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped what was left with its feet. And about the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn that came up and before, which 3 of them fell, the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, and that seemed greater than its companions. As I looked, this horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High, and the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom. So it's interesting because with the first 3 beasts, there is no talk of this war with them, and then all of a sudden you have this war that is talked about with this horn that is on the fourth beast or on the top of the fourth beast, whatever. And and so you have though this very spiritual warfare language because the horn makes war with the saints, and the saints here are not like your St. Augustine or St. Thomas Aquinas or St. Athanasius or the saints of church history. I think it's talking about believers in general. And so it's a very spiritual warfare that is going on. And this horn does prevail over them. I think what that's getting at is that he is martyring them. He's taking their life while on earth. But then the Ancient of Days comes, and verse 22, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High. And so that judgment is the judgment for their martyrdom. And then the Ancient of Days defeats the horn of that beast, and then the saints come. Well, what is this pointing to? It is pointing to the future takeover in the Great Tribulation of the Antichrist. And this is made sense by the description, more so of the fourth beast in verses 23 through 27. So let's look at that. Thus he said, As for the fourth beast, there shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth, and trample it down, and break it to pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings shall arise, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the former ones, and shall put down 3 kings. He shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law, and they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away, to be consumed and destroyed to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. So obviously, the verse 27 is talking about the Lord's victory that we see at the end of the book of Revelation. And so this is really pointing towards the end times. Now, when it comes to the end times, or eschatology, is very fun to talk about, but it can be very dangerous to get really focused on because we don't know when all of this will take place. A lot of people get so focused on the end times that they don't think about being evangelists during the present time. And so for here, and for really for all these visions, I do not want to focus on when these things could happen because we don't know. But we do know that this is end time speech. This is end time speech. But this is definitely the Antichrist. Satan's whole deal since being thrown out of heaven is to be greater than God. He began as an angel reflecting God's glory. And one day he looked back and said, "You know what? It's not that he didn't want to reflect God's glory more, he wanted that glory himself." And so the way that this fourth beast is described in verses 23 through 25 is very reminiscent of Satan's character. He wants to be the one in charge. He wants to be the one that has all the glory, all the victory, and reveling in the defeat of those that oppose him, especially the ones that follow after the Lord. And I think what he's getting at here, what Daniel is getting at here with his vision, when he's talking about the wearing out of the saints of the Most High in verse 25, it's not just the continuous persecution of them. It's the martyrdoms that will come during the Great Tribulation, during that end time as well. And so you have all of this, but then all of a sudden it changes in verse 26. But the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away, to be consumed and destroyed to the end. I think that court is just talking about the Lord will say enough is enough, and at the end of the Great Tribulation, Jesus will come back and defeat Satan for a time. Then the 1,000 years of the millennial reign will happen, and then Satan will be let loose for one last attack against Jesus that will utterly fail, of course, and Jesus will have the victory, which then leads into verse 27. So it's really, this vision is painting the picture of the future victory, spiritual victory, and physical victory over Satan that we see in the book of Revelation. But yet this still terrifies Daniel to his core. Look at verse 28. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. Again, probably just the terrifying depiction of this fourth beast, and then seeing how he goes about devouring and in defeating the saints of the Most High for a time until the Ancient of Days comes and puts all correct. And so I think for me, this vision really shows the faithfulness of God. Yes, you have Satan still loose on the earth today, and he is working behind the scenes, and sometimes, well, not so subtly either. But you have him working behind the scenes, trying his best to win and be triumphant, because he knows the judgment that is coming for him. But thankfully, the Lord will bring that judgment one day. And for you and I, as followers of Jesus, yes, there's so much persecution that is coming for those that follow after Jesus, but it is all worth it, because in the end we will be triumphant because of Jesus, and we will spend eternity with him because we follow, trust, and believe in him. So with that being said, thanks for spending some time with the Brown Word with me today. We will continue on with more visions from Daniel next week. But thanks for spending some time here, though, with me today with this first vision of Daniel. Thanks.